Witten, and this is Career Spotlight.
How are you, sir? My name is Melvin Witten, and I am an entertainment and media lawyer here in the Washington, D.C. area.
Would you like to expand upon your profession?
Well, let me just first of all, I guess a lot of times people, when they hear the word lawyer, the first thing they think about is a litigator, and that's someone that goes into the courtroom and they try cases and things like that. So a lot of times that's what you see on television. But really, there are so many different aspects to the law. And almost in every business, there are rules and laws. And so you can kind of have lawyers in almost every area. It can be lawyers in the medical field or something to that effect. But my background has been more in the area of media and entertainment. So when I finished Howard University School of Law in 1995, which really seems like forever ago, but especially, I don't know if you know if you were even born then. You sure, I don't know if you weren't born then. But my first job actually was at a company called Motown Records, which is in Los Angeles, and I worked in their legal department initially, and then I was the director of director of international business development. And so with that, you deal with contracts and things of that sort. But the great thing about it, you get a chance to meet so many people. I mean, all the artists in that era, I pretty much had an opportunity to meet. We had a pretty big, production company there, and we were producing a big group called Boys to Men at the time. I think we sold about 25 million CDs and did things like that. So, but from there, I worked for the Screen Actors Guild, which is actually the union that protects the rights of all the actors and actresses. So at that point, I was there again, still in Hollywood, and again, you meet a lot of people. But what I was doing, I was actually working on what they call the low budget films, and a low budget film would be anywhere from zero to, let's say, maybe $2 million. And at that time, there was a gentleman named Spike Lee that was making a lot of low budget films. So I was the one that pretty much worked on the films that he was producing from the perspective of the Screen Actors Guild. And so what we needed to do was make sure that they put a deposit down so that if the movie stopped, they would still be able to pay the actors. So that was kind of one of the jobs that I did, the legal work for that. And from there, I worked at Warner Brothers, and I worked on the lot as a lawyer there. And we worked with kind of with the bankruptcy lawyers. So what we did, we had people that would have licenses from Warner Brothers, and if they didn't pay their money, we kind of went after them to get the money. So that was kind of how my career started.
Now, what made you want to become a lawyer?
It's really funny. I would always look at big advertisements, right? Big advertisements, and they may say, 50% off, or on sale, or free coffee. But then when you get and look at that little fine print, it always is something else that will kind of tell you something different. So I always wanted to kind of understand what the fine print meant. And that's kind of kind of a silly way how I thought about, wanting to actually learn about the law. And then I always just felt that being a lawyer would just always have had a lot of prestige to it at one level. And it also let me feel that you would learn a lot about different things. So my dad actually said to me one time, he said, Melvin, just tell me in one sentence, what did law school do for you? And I said, Dad, it taught us how to listen. And so I've now learned, I've always been an attentive person, but what law school does, it teaches you to be an active listener. You see, so when people are telling you different things, you're just always pulling in information and things like that. So I think that is one thing I've loved about it, as well as giving me an incredible command of the English language.
Interesting. Now, can you describe a difficult time in your life and what inspired you to push through?
Okay, so it's really interesting. My mom was trying to get me to be more attentive to my studies once I went away to college. My first year of college, I went away to Hampton University, and I was on the football team, walked onto the football team, made the team, but just really wasn't that focused on school. And at the end of that first semester, I had done really, really horribly. I probably didn't pass any of my classes. And from that, I was in an area where my mother would say I was probably trying to find myself, if you will. So I was in New York, and I was working as a proofreader at a law firm, and had already gotten my proofreading certificate, and was working there, and also had a paralegal certificate as well. And this law firm, which I won't name right now, I don't know where this may go, but anyway, they had, let's say, 600 lawyers, and they only had 2 black lawyers. And at that time, I asked them if they could let me be a paralegal as opposed to a proofreader. And this person, kind of looked at my resume, and then with a big smile on her face, said to me, a young white lady said to me, well, a 4-year degree is the minimum to work here as a proofreader. and she was so happy to kind of eliminate me, and that was a difficult time for me. But what it did, it made me really realize the importance of education and getting a quality education. And so I remember calling my mom and told my mom I would actually, quit that job, come back, and be very serious about school. So going from having basically all failed classes in my freshman year, and then going back to the University of the District of Columbia and graduating with a 4.0 and at the top of my class before going to law school. So that was a time that was a very difficult time in my life that I, again, turned the lemon into lemonade.
What are your visions for the community?
Well, I'll tell you, being from the community, I'm always looking at, again, education for the young people, because many times you hear the cliche that, the youth are our future. But the youth are our future, and I think that so many times now, when you look at the community and how through, let's say, gentrification, maybe a word that you're not using yet, but let's just say gentrification and changing of all the school systems, and a lot of times the school systems having too much of a lacks kind of educational aspect to it. I think that what we have to really do now is become more diligent in making sure that the education is at a level where we can then compete. A lot of times I talk to students about University of the District of Columbia, and I say, you go to UDC, they allow you in, so it's an open admission at university, but it's hard to get out. But when you get out, you're prepared for the next level. So let's look at that in elementary school. When you go to elementary school, you want our schools now to be at a level where once you get out, you're ready for that next level. What happens a lot of times in our communities is that we compete against one another, not being cognizant of the fact that we're really competing against that fifth grader and that eighth grader or ninth grader that's in, let's say, Sherman Oaks, California, that has a 5.0 or something like that. So I think that education to me would be the basis of looking at community, and also looking at us as minorities, being able to hold on to a lot of our property and our homes and things like that, because a lot of people are coming in and running the neighborhood down economically, so that these things can become really cheap. So then what we do, we leave and run, and then they come in and swoop it up at very low prices and then charge very high prices, so we can't move back. And that's happening in communities, all over the United States. So I think that's another really big thing that we're looking at. And then I'll say the third thing should be, the parents training young people like you the importance of saving, and the importance of investing, and the importance of understanding how money works. Because I think a lot of times, with us not having a lot of money generationally, we don't know how to teach our young people how to really understand how money works. And understanding how money works will move us forward as a community, in our community.
What is a legacy you'd like to leave behind?
Well, my dad actually passed away on October 4th, which was a tough day for me. And I remember, so many things that came from him, and the legacy now that I'm seeing that he has left for us. And I think for me, I would like to leave a legacy of being a person that, always kind of took the world less traveled, always kind of was a person that wanted to give back. We had a motto at Howard Law School to lift as we climb. So I try to always lift as I climb. I try to always walk the talk. I always reach back and pull someone forward. And then we also have a cliche that says "pay it forward," and I want to be known as a person that has always paid it forward.
And what advice would you give to someone who wants to become a lawyer?
Well, I tell you, I think the best advice is do it for yourself. It's a very difficult training to become a lawyer, and I think it's something that you just have to really want to do for yourself. So you can't do it for your mama, you can't do it for your boyfriend or girlfriend, you can't do it for your friends that think that it's really cool to be a lawyer. I think again that the training is so rigorous that it has to be something that you're very passionate about, and something that you feel that you really would want to do for the rest of your life. And I don't mean working in a particular aspect of being a lawyer, but just the whole mystique that comes along with it, I think is something that you just really want to have. There are negative and positive, thoughts about lawyers, and but I think that overall, the advice I would give is, it's funny. My sister would say, for her two children, they can do anything they want to do after they go to law school, and she says that because the law training is just so, it just opens up your horizons to so many different things. And so I would want to encourage someone that would want to go. I'd be very excited for them. I'd tell them to go to CLEO, which is the Council on Legal Education Opportunity, to kind of get a broader understanding of how the law works. They actually go all the way back into high schools and teach students, and give them an orientation into the law. So I know I've given you a lot of different things there. So obviously I'm excited about the profession of law. Again, I was never interested in being a litigator. I went back as a slightly older student, but I'm so excited that I did it, and I would definitely do it again.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking.
And thank you so much for having me. And I hope that you one day may think about the field of law, and if not, something to at least think about and tell some of your friends about. And thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Again, my name is Anthony Dixon, and this is Career Spotlight.